Now, the South African National Space Agency has been awarded 4.4 billion rand in investor funding to develop a space infrastructure hub. Through this hub, the organization plans to build up to 6 satellites to supply the country with data. Here's the question. How important is this information collection? And while there must be a jobs potential, do we have enough skills in the country to meet the development requirements? The agency's Chief Executive Officer is Val Munsami and joins us now. Val, good afternoon to you and welcome. So what sort of data will be collected and why is this important in terms of the country's developmental needs?
Thanks, Jeremy, for having me on. So there's 3 sort of streams that we are looking at from a space value proposition. The one is Earth observation. So you have these satellites that are going in orbit, low Earth orbit, and they collect satellite imagery of the landscape. And from these particular satellites, you have sensors that can essentially pick up information that you and I cannot see. So part of the infrared spectrum. So that can give you, for example, information as to how much of water is in the plant, whether the plant has some sort of disease in it before you actually see it in your visible eye. So the utility of this is extremely useful, and government is actually using this kind of information to make policy decisions on the environment and how we're using our natural resources.
As important as that sounds, I guess it might beg the question as to whether this information couldn't be purchased, whether it couldn't be sourced from abroad.
It could, but there are problems with that. So you have to ensure the integrity of your data. There's a national security element associated with this. So, for example, how does foreign countries know what's happening, how much oil potential is in our coastline? Because they have the satellite capability that can detect it. We don't. And unless we put our own satellites in orbit, then we have full integrity of the data and ensuring that we know what's in our own backyard, as opposed to relying on foreign capabilities to do that.
So you've got 4.4 billion rand in investor funding. Where does the money come from and what conditions are attached to it?
So we are in the project preparation phase at the moment. So the money, according to the presidency, is in the bank. So we have to go through a phase where we do the bankability study, the market feasibility study, and then we get into the transacting phase. So in essence, the project will be ready for sort of 1st of April next year. So there's a lot of conversations in terms of the nature of the transaction itself, in terms of how we will get the funding into the agency and how we will get the industry involved in the program.
How do you monitor expenditure going forward, given this country's appalling track record when it comes to corruption?
So that's a very, very important question. So we've started to set the scene. We have a new 5-year strategy in terms of what we would like to do for the next 5 years in terms of aspirations. And what we have started to do was to relook at the business model of the agency. So from the agency perspective, we've had a clean audit since we've been established in 2011, and no irregular expenditure and wasteful expenditure to that effect. So we want to keep that clean track record. But what we are doing is we are building the internal controls and making sure they are robust enough to withstand any interference from the outside. So the business model exercise has been concluded. That will ensure that we have a robust organizational structure that will guard against these kinds of issues.
To my initial question about whether we have enough local skills to do the work, one hopes that we do.
Yes, so we have a significant base that we can start off with. Our industry has been very active. I mean, we've been exporting a lot of the technologies, satellite technologies abroad. We've even built satellites for foreign countries. So the industry is quite capable, and we've had a bursary program that we've developed. Masters and PhD students, every year we give out 50 Masters and PhD bursaries, as an example. So we have a good cohort to start off with in terms of capabilities. And we want to sort of build on that capability that we've established already.
Just a final one. Once the satellite is built, who launches it?
So at the moment, we don't have the launch capability internally in South Africa, although there is some sort of programs in terms of looking at capability. So from the previous satellites that have been launched, we've primarily use the Russians, the Soyuz rocket. And there are many other options out there at the moment in terms of launch capability.
All right, very interesting. I look forward to that first launch. Val Munsami, Chief Executive Officer of the South African National Space Agency, just on 1:30 on this Tuesday afternoon. Let's look at the main stories.